You are watching the Black Man Spy Daily U.S.-Iran Warcast, day 28 of the second phase of the war, and day 163 since this crisis started on February 28th, as the United States and Israel carried out a blitz attack and a decapitation attack against the Iranian regime, its leadership, and its armed forces. That is the least of what's going on. This was supposed to have been a 3 to 5 week war. At one point, there were like 2 to 3 weeks. Really? Well, here we are at nearing the 6-month mark. We are really going into this the wrong way, and there's a lot to be said about that. But first, let me see if our partner, Jacob Carsbo, is available today. Danish intelligence officer extraordinaire. We just sent him an invitation. And Wajeeh, the exceedingly gay lion, is here from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the only reason that I say he is exceedingly is because he is wearing that Nehru hat of his that he has there, which is a traditional hat and made of wool, right? That is pure sheep wool right there on the
Lamb,
top.
preferably.
I'm hot already just looking at that. I mean, hot in the sense that my body temperature rises from the large amount of wool on your head, as opposed to, oh, Wajeeh, you're such a sexy, sexy daddy bear. That is not the hot I was talking about. Although there are many people in the chat, all right, who love the Saudi bear. So, that's a whole level of kink that I don't think anybody's explored. Man, except maybe your husband. I don't know. But that being said, we are waiting for Jacob Carspo to come up. He might have stuff to do, so if he doesn't, we won't. While we're doing that, Wajeeh, tell us the price of oil while I go get another cup of coffee here from my automated espresso machine.
It seems like every day the price of oil goes $1 or $2 up. Today we're sitting at WTI
Yeah.
79.83. Brent crude is sitting at 85.27.
Hmm.
Morban is sitting at 80.25. And OPEC is sitting at 76.97. And I do have one of my friends will be helping us set up software soon, so we won't have to be moving any cameras or anything, and we could
Oh,
just
really? Wait,
pull it
are
all
they
out.
giving you a software suite that allows you to project stuff?
Yes, so
Oh, you need to tell me immediately
he's
when
a
that comes.
producer. He's a producer, and I invited him over to help me set up the whole
Is he
thing.
going to
So Phil,
produce your show or what?
he's gonna help us produce this show.
Wait, somebody says, hey, question from Jacques Pratt. Question: how does Malcolm know all the gay slang? I was a sailor, baby. You know what they say about sailors. No, I'm just joking. But you do certainly, I get around. I get around. That's all I can say. Well, the price of gold is going up and both down at the same time. That's absolutely amazing. Let's see what happens
Wow,
today. Sorry about the
how's it going
grinding.
up and down at the same time?
Sorry about the grinding my automated coffee machine. All I do is press a button, and boils hot water, then it grinds the coffee beans and then makes the espresso. So, and I need it because we have a very interesting show today because the war as we know it is not happening in the Strait of Hormuz. It is completely shifted to the Red Sea, which is not a good thing. It's not where we really want to be seeing people shooting because
Didn't
that
I
is
predict this 5 months ago?
we predicted it for what 163 times. We have predicted that it could not only get worse, that it would get worse. And once it got worse, things would be worse. And now it's worse. So, okay, I'm going to, if Jacob Carsmo comes up, you guys just let me know. I'm going to drop him out there, his invitations up, but I need a cup of coffee. And I just want to, I saw you had your Blue Genie coffee mug there today.
That's right.
And one of the questions we need to ask Dexter Ingram, our friend, in fact, we could invite Dexter up if Jacob's not here.
Let's do it.
That would be
And actually,
horrible.
with the new software, we'll be able to bring more people than just
On
us
Substack or YouTube?
on Substack, and we'll be able to go live on YouTube and Substack at the same time.
Gotta let me know what's going on there so that we can both do this because I have been wanting
That's what he's telling me. I'm just waiting to figure
I
out.
have been wanting to up my Substack game. So I've invited Dexter Ingram because I have a question about his. I know his father was in the U.S. intelligence community. I need to know about his grandfather. He probably doesn't want to tell us all about that, but there's a very famous Ingram that I need to know about. Somebody goes, "Yay, this is a good idea." So you have your blue mug today, your blue genie mug, your Will Smith in Aladdin, the Disney movie mug. In honor of the questions that are on the chat, the questions have been up for the last hour and a half or so on the Substack chat. And one of the questions was about Larry Johnson. He's a former CIA analyst. I don't think he was a case officer, but he's a very outspoken guy, and he wears like a Hawaiian shirt and a white fedora hat and smokes a cigar every time that he comes up on every time he comes up on Mario Nawafal's show. And conspiracy theorists tend to do much better on shows like that than normal straight analysts because they say crazy shit and people are expecting to hear crazy shit and they get invested in the crazy. I do not delve in conspiracy theory. I won't. If I don't have hard ass facts behind it. And the closest I ever got was this Morocco thing in Ceuta. And that has since been confirmed by three major intelligence agencies. So it ain't a conspiracy theory when actual intelligence community agencies are clearing it up. So, but one of the things that gets me is that I was invited to debate him on Mario Nawafal's show about Ukraine, and I was like, Ukraine? What? Why would I care about Ukraine with Larry Johnson? And I guess somebody says here that he was talking about on Mario's that the Russians will overrun Kyiv and that Ukraine will fall. It's like, what? Now I got to debate Larry Johnson. So, in honor of Larry Johnson, I decided not to have my traditional coffee cup, but that I would drink today my double espresso from, check this out, what?
Isn't that the guy with always a cigar?
Cigar and the Hawaiian shirt and the white fedora.
Yeah.
So, today I am drinking my coffee mug out of my Russian Army coffee mug I captured. I have several of these that we captured in the city of Kupiansk in the VDV Spetsnaz headquarters, where we literally ate their fucking lunch. Okay, we captured their food, we captured their coffee mugs, their super grandiose Russian special forces MREs that were actually not bad. I gave one of them to the Spy Museum, completely whole, captured, and they have a special cover. They aren't shit like those regular Russian MREs. But man, oh man, I'm like, so if I have to debate Larry, I'm going to be drinking out of this cup like this. Mm. You know what, Larry? You know what this tastes like? Dead Russian tears. That's what it tastes like. Because this is what happens when a schmo like me can get your goddamn coffee cups and plates. Okay. And somebody else is saying, Scott Ritter, there's another one. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. Scott Ritter, I don't even want to talk to that motherfucker. He insults me all the time on his show. But I didn't go to prison for 3 years for soliciting children on the internet.
Ooh. One of my friends actually one of my friends, he's the
That was
producer
Scott
I'm
Ritter.
telling you about. He was asking if you would get on the Breakfast Club podcast in New
Wait, that's
York.
Charlemagne the God?
Yeah.
I'd eat that show for breakfast myself. But Charlemagne's, yeah, that's an interesting show. If he has access to Charlemagne the God, I'll take that show because somebody needs. I'm very well known in the African American community. I was at lunch yesterday. Well, we just went over 1,200. We got to start the show. And a black guy saw me and he goes, Malcolm Nance, middle of nowhere, middle of nowhere. And I'm like, okay. He goes, Black Man Spy. Because I was on air on NBC for 7 years, and no one can say I put out any conspiracy theories on that. That being said, one of my favorite phrases now, let's take a look at the war, shall we? First,
Let's do it.
let's start with the significant activities. Yemen, the city of Mukha has been
Mhm.
attacked for the second day in a row by the Houthi rebels who are bombarding it with a wave of drones. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to bring up the map so that you can follow us. Geography is critical in a show like this. Okay. So it's important that you know where these things are taking place in relation to like the Strait of Hormuz. So here we are, on the Arabian Peninsula. Up north, you see the Horn of Africa. Down there, I'm going to zoom out some more so you get a perspective. So, Arabian Peninsula, Strait of Hormuz, Suez Canal, Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Oman, Yemen is down here in the southwest side of the Arabian Peninsula. Now we're going to zoom in so that you get a better idea of what's going on where. And right here at this gap between Djibouti, which was a former French protectorate, this nation right here, this tiny little nation is Djibouti. Up here is Eritrea with the port of Assab on the Red Sea. This is Ethiopia behind it. Down here is Somaliland, not Somalia,
Mhm.
Somaliland. And over here down there is Somalia. This is southern Yemen. This is northern Yemen. And Mukha, where all your
Mhm.
delicious chocolate flavored coffee comes from. Mukha, uh, it's off my map there. Up, up, up. My cursor is, there it
Isn't it
is.
to the right?
Directly across from Assab. So here's Mukha right here. If you take the coastal road going straight up, you go to Houthilandia. All right. First, you go to Khauka. Then you go on to Hodeidah. Down here, if you to get to the capital of the South Yemen or the recognized government of Yemen, that's Aden right here. To get there, you got to go from Mocha to Taiz and then down to Aden. And if you guys want to follow it, you want the details of what's going on in Yemen, you can go to a website called the Taiz Times. And it's
Guys,
actually really good. It's a pro-government website, but the guy he's a journalist and he does very good reporting. So why are you giving us this geography lesson? Because Mocha has been bombarded for the second day in a row, as had the city of Aden has now been attacked by the Houthis. Yesterday, the Houthis fired multiple drones at the city of Mocha. They have killed 8 people last night, and wounded 30. And they're using Iranian-built suicide drones that go out and blast it. The Yemeni Arab Army has shot down 11 of those drones, which is rather impressive, but means that they're awake, they're on their guns, and when they hear the propellers, they start shooting in the correct manner, which, consider it's Yemen, I didn't think that was possible. But apparently, it is very possible. Sometimes there are competencies that guys have. However, yesterday, we haven't confirmed that they hit the presidential palace, but there is video showing that here in Aden, which is on the Indian Ocean. Aden, the presidential palace, had anti-aircraft guns going off left and right, and little motorcycle-like engines were heard flying towards it, also known as the Iranian-backed drones. So that is what's going on in Yemen. The Houthis, on the other hand, may have damaged an American MQ-9 Reaper drone, because a Reaper drone yesterday, as it was flying down here to Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti, which is where we have our military base, it declared an emergency. You know, it's being flown by a guy in Detroit, right? Or no, Denver, Colorado. The aircraft is actually in Djibouti,
Wait a minute.
takes off.
You gotta. That's something to break down. Wait, what you mean they're from Colorado or Detroit?
Bro, it's a drone. Drones are
Oh,
flown by pilots who are sitting in a completely different location. If it
oh,
is
I
a,
thought you meant like. Never mind.
all right, hold on. First off, before we go any further, somebody, Mar writes, Mocha Djibouti. That's a stripper name.
Boca Booty.
I'm writing that down. That's a t-shirt. That's gotta be a t-shirt. Mocha Djibouti. On stage 3, Mocha in the VIP lounge. Anyway, in case you guys want to know where I know all that from. Anyway, a U.S. Reaper drone was flying from its operational mission track, which is generally up here off of Yemen. The the Houthis have shot down at least 10 Reaper drones in the last few years. They're getting rather good at shooting them down. This one was coming back, declared an emergency, and crashed just off the runway as it was landing in Djibouti. So that is a kill. So it probably got hit by anti-aircraft gunfire. Now, you cannot discount the possibility that it was shot down by Yemeni Arab Air Force, Yemeni Arab Army forces, shooting down a friendly drone, because any drone is getting shot at these days in Yemen. So that is what was going on for the most part. That is the biggest news that's happening in the Middle East, is that the Yemen war is heating up, back up into where the Yemeni Arab Army is trying to make its move on the Houthis here in Houthilandia, up in this part of the country. Up here, that line, that's the Saudi border. This is Jazan Oil Refinery, which got hit the other day, and Aden is down here at the bottom, which is the nominal capital of all of Yemen. But Sa'ana, which is right here, is the capital of Houthilandia. And all the fighting right now is taking place out east here in Maghrib. So that's what's
Uh,
going on in Yemen.
as of an hour ago, Houthi
Yeah.
convoys are moving from Mawaya toward the front lines in Al-Hosha.
Al Hosha. So, Migdal, where is this? Well, there's a lot of
Al-Baher
front lines.
and
Consider where?
Al-Baher and Al-Hosha, Al-Baher and Al-Musaymi.
Let me see if I can get a grip on that with regards to the satellite giving me a grid. Anyway, well, that war requires us to have a special show eventually. Okay, Elijah, let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we didn't even start with that. We're not even talking about the deal. Things are so slow today. We might even have a relatively early show, except that there's about 50 questions in the question section. And half of them are about Larry Johnson. Oh, let me drink out of that Russian army captive cup.
More about Larry Johnson.
This shit tastes like victory. And you know what? I think I have 3 of these. And the plates, there's little plates with Russian army stars on them also, we collected. And when we would go into the Russian bunkers or into the places where the regular infantry were, you had to look out. They were shitholes. They would eat canned food in their own trenches, right? Like in their little holes, and they would throw it right outside the door, right? And ask anybody that was in the Legion with me in 3rd Battalion when we were on operations. I was obsessive about keeping our spaces immaculately clean. And I would spend like an hour after a mission picking up like brass and trash and all this stuff. And they were like, oh, the chief's on a rampage again. We actually took over a house in a tiny village the Russians had occupied. And it was literally a shithole. They trashed it, the small house. And it was a collaborator's house. So that's why the Russians were in it. And then when we pushed the Russians out, that guy didn't come back. And we cleaned that house spotless. We hired local women to move the trash. We paid them off in big pack cartons of cigarettes, which made them the most powerful people in the village. Our little old ladies who control all the cigarettes, right? Because all the men do is smoke. That's all the guys do. Sit around, these old guys sit around and smoke. So they would bring us stew and all the rest of this stuff. But Russian physicians were shit holes. They didn't care whether they would poop outside the door and then throw it and then have to walk through it. Ugh. Russians are just nasty, dirty. Just
Ew.
nasty, dirty. Um, so, Malcolm, why are you telling us all about this? Because I'm drinking out of my captured Russian cups. And the reason that we got these cups is they were shipped into a Russian special operations headquarters that 3rd Battalion and who was the Kraken Brigade took it with us. Kraken took the tanks, we got the coffee mugs. that's, that's how it works over there.
I guess I call that a bargain.
Yeah, Kraken would jump up with Kraken guys would run around with spray paint cans and spray paint Kraken or whatever they caught captured, right? Just they were like, get ahead of those Legion guys. So the Strait of Hormuz, the only activity that's happening in the Strait of Hormuz is merchant traffic is down to a trickle. Virtually nothing's moving through it. But interestingly enough, a Royal Saudi Arabian Air Force drone, a Chinese built Longwan drone, was shot down and crashed, and its remains captured in a place we have all known and come and know to love, which is Sirik, Iranian Revolutionary Guard base, which is here opposite Musandam Peninsula. This is Oman. That's Sirik. Sirik has the underground cave and boat complex with missiles, drones, mines, and the Saudis for the Americans were flying their Chinese Longwang or Lungwang drones over that base, and the Iranians shot one down. Now, when I first heard this, I thought, no, this has to be a United Arab Emirates drone because you see it's very close to the UAE, but the UAE flies that type of drone up there. So let's see. Lungwang drone. And if you look at it, it looks like the Reaper drone. Wing Long drone. And it looks just like the American Reaper drone. As a matter of fact, it's essentially a Chinese copy of the Reaper drone. Boop, 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 boop. Let's see if I can get you a better
Wow.
one. But the Saudis have bought it. The Emiratis have bought it. There it is. That's the Chinese Wing Long drone. Looks just like the Reaper, even looks like the Iranian drone, right? So, which is a copy of the Reaper drone. But this was shot down off of Sirik in the Strait of Hormuz, which means the Saudis are cooperating with us, carrying out intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance flights, tracking Iranian activities in there. So I think that this will be very interesting when the Iranians go to them and say, hey, listen, We're going to give you that drone back, okay? But, but it's going to cost you $3 billion. And the Saudis are
Jesus.
going to pay it, right? It's, somebody says it's cute how I point the phone at the TV monitor. This is the best way to do it, right? Is to point the phone to the computer monitor, and you can see what I see. All right. Whoa, very slow day today. Look, we're 29
Well,
after. We're
here's what
almost finished.
here's what Iran has to say.
What does Iran have to say? What are they talking about?
No military solution to the Strait of Hormuz can be expected if you want the Strait of Hormuz to open, and that's their message to Oman. The Iranians, the Americans have to stick to the original MOU and pay retributions for breaking the MOU, releasing more sanctions from the Iranian assets back to the Iranians, and then we will consider opening the Strait of Hormuz. So even the negotiation just regarding opening the Strait of Hormuz with the Omanis by the end of the day has to come to the Americans sticking to their own promises. And as long as the Americans don't stick to their own promises, you and I and the rest of the world will continue to pay the cost out of our own pockets, having the Iranians continue to show they continue to control the strait and have the driver's seat in terms of the escalation ladder, and Trump keeps going back to his original circle of blackmail, and we can do this, and how dare you, we still have more ammunition. But when push comes to shove, the head of the military goes, you should find a way out.
Yeah. I find it funny. Krabby Louie just made a funny comment there. He goes, "So what you're saying is no Trump Tower to Iran?"
No.
Oh, Denise Clover. Well, then we're fucked. Yes, that pretty much is it. Okay, that pretty much is it. We're as we say at our survival school. You are most fucketed, most fucketed, not half, most, all, 100%. Well, as if you had to come on this show to learn what the U.S. intelligence community thought about the Iranian situation, let's go to British intelligence. I can't show you the video because it is copyrighted, but the former chief of British Human Intelligence, MI6 director, says who has the current upper hand in the U.S. Iran war. And he says, I am sorry to say it, Iran. U.S. has underestimated this and handed initiative to Iran more than 2 weeks ago. The regime is far more resilient than expected. If they had been watching this show, we would have been going, whoa, whoa, dudes, these guys can take it, right? They're resilient. What are you going to do to them? Nothing. So, dispersed assets. They have dispersed assets and decentralized their control from day number one. That sounds all vaguely familiar. So now you have it from the director of MI6, British Secret Intelligence Service, of which I have some glasses here. Somebody sent me. So you're not just hearing it from us. You are hearing it from true intelligence professionals. And what I find funny, for all the crazy talk that I talk about those people on Mario Nawafal's show, where I get 100,000, 150,000 views a day in things that I put out there, it's the crazy guys who get bigger views, 300, 400,000. The Professor Mearsheimer, that guy predicted Ukraine would fall in 72 hours, the whole country. It's like, okay, that's a little nuts. The disgraced pedophiles like Scott Ritter and kooky guys like Larry Johnson, who smoke cigars on air and wear hats. I don't have to do that. I will drink out of a Russian soldier's cup, but
Didn't you have a desk job at the CIA?
an analyst. Yeah, an analyst. I mean, you're still at CIA. You're processing all of the intelligence that's coming in, right? And Somebody says Mearsheimer is good on the Israeli lobby, but not on his predictions of war. Yes, you're right. These guys are awful at their analysis because they like to go to the extreme corners and take a position and stake it out that would any normal person would go, "Wow, that's crazy. That's not going to happen."
Well,
And they
the
all go,
problem is
"Yeah,
that they don't have anything grounded in reality when you're behind a desk all the time, just looking at reports. It's so different than when you're on the
well."
ground.
There's a difference, though. There are analysts who are very good at what they do because the intelligence process is taking in enormous amounts of data. And I have one of my Nance's laws that's in the that's in my memoir is make sure you always read. We had these big giant binders of everything that happened in the previous 24 hour called read board. And when you would come in, you would open up the giant read board binder like this, and you would go through 24 hours of intelligence collection since you left watch. You have to sit and read paper, right? Now it's done by computer, but it gives you a consistent cycle of data. So those guys who are analysts, they actually make assessments. So I don't have any problem with Larry Johnson being a former CIA analyst. You don't have to be a case officer. Oh, there's another nutty guy, John Kiriakou, who was a CIA case officer. He worked in the Middle East. He had a good career right up to the minute that he
Oh, yeah,
was sent to prison for 3 years for outing the name of real CIA officers to journalists. I would never do that. And somebody actually said it. Somebody, when I was on that show, was like, "Well, you're no Kiriakou. Kiriakou hurt you." Never met this guy, but Kiriakou actually made up a story about me that he suddenly remembered 25 years later, claiming he met me and that I had bought some books from him on eBay, and I was in Washington claiming I was some super spy. Well, at the time, I was actually living in Europe, so I have no earthly idea what he's talking about. And he only remembered it 25 years later. So these guys, I call them the disgraced formers. A lot of these disgraced formers try to gain their credibility, especially with the pro Moscow, pro Trump crowd, by trying to take down guys like you, me, and Jacob. It's a full time.
I uh I was actually trying to look more into his story. He says he got in trouble because he blew the whistle on waterboarding and
No.
that he didn't want to
Well,
do it.
he didn't have to. All right. Because I had already come out and, in an unclassified manner, without revealing any secrets, had testified before Congress that waterboarding was torture because it was my fucking board from my SEER school that was copied our training manual called the Red Book that was taken. And by the way, all of this has been cleared. It's in my memoir, a whole chapter on what it's like to get waterboarded. And it ain't positive. But this guy outed the blacks, if I'm not mistaken, the real names of the CIA officers involved in it. Even I would never fucking do that. Okay. I'll say some guys did some shit in some places and it wasn't good. Unclassified. All right. So I don't know, but he says he was framed. He was doing all this stuff. I don't know, but I didn't go to fucking prison for 3 years. That's the difference between me, Scott Ritter, prison for 3 years for being a pedophile, and others. There's a big, I maintain my honor and my memoir to get these stories to you, it took 2 years to be cleared. 2 years to be cleared. So whatever's in those books is good to go. But you know what's not in those books? Real names of CIA officers. Nobody's names of anybody that is not out cleared. Montel, I can tell you who's in my memoir. Montel Williams and my former division officer who became deputy director of NSA, Barbara A. McNamara, who passed away recently. And everybody else was an enemy. Osama bin Laden. I can get away with that. So this is what I'm saying. Like Michelle says, you got to keep it real. You got to keep it real. And there are other guys who got screwed over. I found out that my memoir is not the first memoir of a black spy. It's the second. But the guy who did it, Jeffrey Sterling, I read it. I bought his book. Jeffrey Sterling went to prison for 3 years for outing a classified program against Iran. That's the difference between me and them, right? My shit's clean and cleared. Everybody else has some disgrace going. So that's the difference.
Sure.
All right. Last points before we go to questions. Syria. Syria, the Russians have turned over control of Tartus Air Base and Latakia Port back to the government of Syria, right? They were being held by the Russians. The Syrian government didn't have the ability to take control of it, right? So they are going to be under joint control. The Russians will be allowed to rent them and come and visit them if they give training facilities to Syrian people. Finally,
Wow.
Israel-Lebanon deal is still going on. Israel
This
now,
is a big deal. Like, I don't
what, the
know if the
Syria thing?
audience, yes. Especially that Al-Julani, now that goes by Ahmed al-Shara, directly
Not
fought
tonight.
the Russians. And the Russians were responsible for killing tens of thousands of innocent Syrian civilians. And the fact that Ahmed al-Shara is able to get back on a diplomatic wagon and find some sort of agreement with the Russians is in a way mind-boggling, and another way victory of itself for him.
Mm-hmm. No. I think it is. I think it's good because now he's bringing everybody under his belt. That also, I mean, you're right. They killed tens of thousands of people, but it's returning the country to normalization. He's established normal relations with the European Union. He is wearing a suit in front of Trump, and Trump is like, "You are no longer a terrorist that killed Americans. We love you. You have a suit." Unlike that Zelensky guy. And so Syria is restoring itself back to some norms. And that's a good thing. With
That
regard to
is
Israel and Lebanon, Israel would like bodies of Jews who died over the last couple of centuries that are buried in Beirut and Sidon. These are people who lived there, and they would like the bodies exhumated and brought back and transferred to Israel. And Waji, you had some things to say about that because they are in Jewish cemeteries.
they are Jewish cemeteries. Um, Here's a thing that a lot of people do not understand. Arab nations, all of them have a large Jewish population, a moderate to a large Jewish population, up to the first Arab-Israeli war.
Yep.
And then there was an exodus where
Oh,
Arabs
let's use the
turned
right
against
word here. There was a
what?
mass ethnic cleansing of the Jews. The Jews knew it was
That's
time to
right.
go, and these people had been there. Jews had been there for since the Prophet Muhammad had two Jewish families in Mecca, right?
Yes.
So
So
Jews have been
there are
around forever.
tribes. There are tribes now in Arabia that if you test their DNA, they will test positive 100% for being Jewish.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. I know this for truth. I know some members of these tribes. These tribes are not small; they're big. In addition, Yemen had a large Jewish population. Syria had a large Jewish population. Iraq, and they were all ethnically cleansed or kicked out. Yes, you are absolutely correct. And they all went to Israel.
Yes.
Now, there are minorities that
Ah,
still stayed, but they are very, very few. I said to Malcolm that desecrating any grave in Islam is a big sin because that is something that is dealt between the person in the grave and the creator at that point. not something for the people to interact with.
Mm.
And they believe spirituality, God takes his own. Muslims believe that as soon as you're in the grave, God takes direct responsibility of like what happens to you in the ground. So any interaction from any humans would be very, very very disrespectful to that person in the grave and God himself,
Ah,
because like you're disrupting God's actions in the grave. Because once you're in the grave, Muslims believe if you're good or bad, God opens a door of heaven or hell directly in your grave. So if you're good, uh, God has opened a door of heaven into your grave, then you have interrupted this person's grace into heaven. But if
mhm.
God is already torturing you and has opened a door of hell, then you have also interrupted God's intervention of torturing this person in grave. So regardless, you don't want to interfere with any of that at that point. Most unless you're a childish person that don't have a full understanding of the Sharia, you could see some people do stupid shit like that, but majority of Muslim would reprimand you right away if you thought of doing something like that, nevertheless of doing it.
Right.
Um, Therefore, like I see that Israel calling for these bodies back, unless it is from Lebanese Jews who have actually asked, from their family members who have asked for them to be relocated. I don't see how Israel has the right of claiming their bodies if they have been
Well,
buried there centuries ago.
what I read there is that the Israelis, the families have emigrated long ago. And you're right. I mean, right up to 1948. Now, I do want to point something out because I did make a sort of slight inaccuracy. Not everybody was ethnically cleansed. Okay. Ethnic cleansed because Jewish communities and Christian communities lived under Muslim rule for 1,400 some odd years, right? Because there is a loophole for them since they are people of the Abrahamic faith. They were allowed to live in Jewish and Muslim communities without harassment, right? So long as they paid the jizya tax, correct?
That's right.
So long as you paid your tax. This, by the way, in case I learned this when I was in Bosnia Herzegovina, right? And during the Bosnia War. Um, People were telling me that when I was in Bosnia and Croatia, they were like, "Oh, well, we have Muslims here." And I was like, "Really?" Because when I spent all my time in Bosnia and Sarajevo and around the Serbs and everything, all I saw were Muslims that didn't pray and Muslims and Christians that didn't pray and drank. That's all I saw. And then next thing you know, the Christians are ethnically cleansing, trying to mass murder the Muslims because of a battle they lost 600 years ago. I mean, it was bizarre, right? All I saw was white folks killing each other. People hold these grudges, but under the Islamic faith, the reason most people in the Balkans became Muslims was because you didn't have to pay tax, right? Many people converted for tax
I mean,
purposes.
you still have to pay zakah,
No,
but
that's
that's the
charity. That's not a tax.
yeah, you
That's
still
an
have to pay
obligation.
zakah, but that's not tax. You're right, but
It's
it's
no,
considered zakah.
so long as you give something, right? Not a fixed tax, but jizya, which is a tax on Christians and Jews to remain in good standing within the Islamic community was mandatory. And I got to
Here's
tell you something.
additional context. You had to be a person of the holy books. If you were a person that worshipped a deity, then you were fought to death.
Yeah, yeah. That you're talking a pagan,
A pagan, yes,
a pagan.
or like Hindu or worshiping fire. Any of those religions,
Well,
you would have been fought to the death.
this long roundabout historical point that we tried to make here is because there were Jews everywhere in the Muslim world for centuries, 14 centuries or more. And Lebanon had up to 20,000 Jews until 1948. Then in 1948, a lot of them jumped in their cars, drove south, and emigrated to Israel when Israel became a nation. Many Jews from the diaspora around the world came to Israel. So not all of it was ethnic cleansing. But when the fighting started and nations started to go after Israel, a lot of ethnic cleansing did start. I met one of the last Jews and the last Jewish rabbi in Baghdad, and that was an education.
Wow.
That I think there's like three there now. It says there are less than 100 Jews in Lebanon, from what I can read. But those communities buried their dead, and now people want to bring them back. You know, Eh,
If their family wants them back, I get it.
yeah. So that's just one of the things that's going on geopolitically with Israel. Now they're asking for the return of some bodies. That is the last thing that we had. This is a relatively slow day. We talk more culture and jokes than we talked about activities going on in the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa, in North Africa, and that's good. So let's go over some of the questions, shall we? And we will touch on the Russian thing. Larry Johnson, who is he? Says Martha. I hope he's a liar. Last night on Mario, he said the Russians will overrun Kyiv and Ukraine will fall. Say it ain't so, Malcolm. I don't know. Let me take a little taste. Out of my Russian captured coffee mug. That from a town that's still under our control, and it is 20 clicks from the Russian border. Right? Even Putin is being told they occupy that town. It hasn't been occupied in months. And the Ukrainians only got pushed out in a major offensive less than a year ago. So they held it for 3 years without anything going on. And then Zelensky comes walking in the day that Putin said they had taken Kupiansk. And Zelensky's like, oh, fuck that shit. Right? Here's Zelensky in downtown Kupiansk hanging out with my dog. Our dog's name is Kupiansk, our battalion dog that followed us from behind Russian lines. Okay, let me move on. Malcolm, what do you think
Isn't
BB
having
has
an
up its—
animal at the front lines helpful?
What's that?
Like, like having an animal at the front line sounds so helpful for many reasons.
I told you the story. He came and found me because he was scared of the bombing. And he was like, that guy looks cool. I'm going to go over him. And he jumped literally in my arms, literally in my arms. I did not steal Putin's dog. He came from the village of Kupiansk, which was occupied by the Russians, and they killed a lot of civilians. And he was just like, didn't show you guys the photo of that? Did I show you the photo of our dog?
Oh,
Oh, come on.
no.
Of course I did.
No, you
But
didn't. This is the first maybe I'm hearing about this.
oh, you don't pay attention to the stories, man. Let me look up my dog Kupiansk here.
Look,
Uh
everyone's saying no. Look, everyone's saying no.
how is this? I could have swore I showed this photo before. But wartime Malcolm. And let's look up me with my battalion dog, Kupiansk. And he's named Kupiansk because he followed us around for 3 days because we were feeding him all those Russian rations. And even though they were that nasty, there's
God.
me with my dog. That dog literally jumped in my arms. Oh, by the way, this photo is also
Goodness.
for those guys who were like, you were in a hotel in Poland. You were never in the war. Well, I was
Oh,
in that
baby.
war. So this dog literally jumped into my arms. I have a photograph. By the way, as the intel guy and my company commander were the only people allowed to have telephones. And we had the SIMs out of them, no location data. That was to take photos of like ID cards, positions,
Wow.
dead bodies, things like that. And so I was like, this was so much fun. I had pictures taken. But when the dog was being bombarded, I was laying in a street in an intersection in a ditch, and I see coming out of this bushes this big black thing, and it goes 1, 2, 3. Third bounce, it jumped into my arms, and I had to drop my rifle to catch him. And I have a photo of that very moment. of, of the
Is
dog
is the
in
boot
my
duct tape to say that you're with Ukraine?
yeah. And this was in Ukraine. This is in Kupiansk, East Kupiansk. And so we took him back. He followed us for 3 days on our mission. We were feeding him. And then we were like, we're going to name him Kupiansk. And now he lives in Kharkiv with our battalion. He's been there for 3 years, Kupiansk. He's getting older. I think he's like 11 or 12 now. But
Much.
I don't know. He looks like a little bit of a shepherd. But that is how you get a
Someone
free
said
dog.
black dog spy.
Black dog spy. Black spy's dog. Let me see. Let me see. I do have the very instant. It was so shocking that this dog jumped into my arms, and we're laying in the grass. And then I got on my radio and go, guys, I got a dog. And they were like, what? Dog. I got a dog. He's in my arms. And they were like, what are you doing with a dog? Everybody was laughing at me. It was freaking hilarious. Uh, September 2022. Let me see if I can find the original photo of that dog the
Oh, you
moment
should have a
after.
patch just for that.
We should have a Kupiansk patch and we should raise money for the battalion. So yeah, I've got the photos here. Where is he? But it's a hilarious story only because somebody said it right. The dog knows nice people when he sees him. So here, this is my shot. The fuck do I have a dog face? This is me at the
Oh my
very
god.
moment. Hold on, hold on. It gets funnier. There he is. This is hilarious. And I'm like, dog, I got a dog. And he's like, "Hey, this looks like fun. This is a cool guy." But that's I was just so shocked. I just took a selfie, and then a moment later, the hilarity of it hit me, and I started laughing. That's the very
He can
moment.
die.
What? Oh, that's funny. So that's
It took you a
that's
second, huh?
but he's still with us. He lives in Kharkiv now. And he was a registered dog, but we think the owners may have been killed. So, because he had a chip. The Ukrainians are like Americans. They love their dogs. They love their cats. They had pet stores everywhere. One of the best groups out there back when the front was really dynamic. They can't go out and do it much anymore. They would go to these zero line villages with giant tubes that had pet feeders um, that had pet feeders on them.
Wow.
And they would fill them up so the dogs and cats would get pet food. And the first thing we would do in every village, there's always a little old lady that would come out and she'd go, "Where is my dog? Where is my dog?" And we'd have to stop everything. All offensive operations stop till we find this lady's dog.
Oh my god.
Or cat. Cats too. And they're always the little old ladies, the babushkas, never. They don't care how many rockets hit, how many Russian soldiers come through. They never leave their houses. So we always had to be very careful when clearing houses. We were like, babushka.
It's
And by the way,
official. Black dog spy patch is in demand.
black dog spy. All right, we could do that. And they'll say Kupiansk on the bottom in Russian. I could get you that patch. Okay, well, we've had too much fun. I know it was a very slow day in the Middle East, to the point where I'm actually in my photos here of Kupiansk, and let me see if I can show you guys something that will be fun because there's a lot of guys out there like you weren't even in the army, and it was like I sure felt like it when I was getting bombarded by the Russians and shot at, and one of them is a video that I made with a friend of mine, and this is funny. Uh, we are in this Russian. This is the armor from the Spetsnaz unit that was there. It was VDV Spetsnaz, and we have their T-shirts, their stripy T-shirts, and all their stuff. We got their laundry. And this video, I made this crazy video. Watch this.
I'm going to proclaim that I captured this BTR 70, 80, whatever it is, but I didn't. It's been destroyed.
My buddy's over there laughing. But we get into this base, and this is the only piece of armor left. And I got somebody's Russian ID card. He didn't have a good day. But yeah, it was a very interesting time. Someday we will do a special subscribers only show. And I've told people that I don't show these photos or videos of my time on the Zero line. Back then, you couldn't wear a GoPro. You were not allowed to have a camera on you unless you were the intel guy or you were the officer in charge. Because back then the Russians really could intercept you and do that. Then everybody started wearing GoPros left and right, and I didn't have a GoPro, so or I didn't have a GoPro that I was wearing all the time. So very funny, but this is my favorite one. I'm going to show you this photo, and then we'll sign off. This comes from Russian state TV, where I became famous for about 2 weeks. This is my friend, Russian Media Monitor, uh, does these translations of Russian state TV. But this is a translation from Russian state TV, a video of me saying, we can say that Negroes are doing the liberating.
Oh my God.
And to quote the immortal words of Blazing Saddles, and they was right.
I mean, it's not the first time. Never mind.
All right, well, let's stop. We this is what happens when you have a slow Persian Gulf day. We shift back to good times in Ukraine. But it's something that we all need to talk about. All right, guys, if you've been watching this on YouTube, you can go watch that video, by the way. That's still on YouTube of me saying, "What now, bitches? Shit's coming
Did
down."
did did you see Rezai's appointment?
Rezai's appointment to what?
The supreme leader right hand or something like that.
Oh, that guy. He's hardcore. He's a nutter.
Yeah, he's very
Let's
hardcore.
talk about that tomorrow because that takes some review. All right, guys, thanks for coming to this episode of Black Man Spy. We made it a full hour. Yay! Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. If you are watching this on YouTube, please follow, like, and subscribe, as they say. I'm mimicking Pete Hegseth. Follow, like, and subscribe. And because we are trying to get to 250,000 followers on YouTube, and most of our followers are actually coming from Mario Nawafal's YouTube program, which is funny. And on the other hand, if you're watching this on Substack, you are cool and you have taste. And if you are a paid subscriber, you are enjoying the hell out of this chat down there, which is hilarious. Uh, and and I'm getting t-shirt ideas, I'm getting stripper names. Everything's going on there. So come join us, become a paid subscriber to Black Man Spy. Wajeeh program, because Wajeeh needs to raise $6,000 so he can become a true blue American citizen and be discriminated against equally, not as a fuzzy foreigner. So
That's right.
that's all. You just want to be like us. You just want to have people cut in line in front of you at the Walmart. All right.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
want to
guys.
stand in lines for hours so I can vote.
Yep. So we're going to be talking that merch stuff really soon. So thanks for coming to today's episode. We will see you tomorrow. I'm sure Jacob will be back from whatever he's like, oh, the king called me this morning. All right. That's Jacob. Okay. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.